Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about school spirits. So, I finally now just watched this show. I reviewed the first episode when it came out in March, but I didn't have Paramount Plus, but they showed the first episode for free. And well, I said that, I'm not sure if this show is going to be for me. Why? Because it's a YA novel type show. And I'm not Gen Z, I'm Generation X. And so I'm not into like all this YA novel type series or movies and stuff. So I wasn't really sure if I was going to keep with it. And I said the premise was interesting. There's a girl, she's dead, she's hanging out at her school because she can't literally leave her school. Every time she does, she goes back to the place where she died and everything, the boiler room. And so like there's a bunch of like ghosts just like all around the school. They're just teenagers and stuff, and one teacher, the only adult, and they're helping her to cope. They're having like council meetings and stuff like that. And where the premise is interesting, I really didn't feel like watching a bunch of teenage ghosts talking about how they died decades ago and grieving with it. I'm sure somebody would find that interesting, but it just wasn't really for me. But I have Paramount Plus. I'm all like, I might as well get my worth out of it. I can't find much to watch on this like app. Like this, just a bunch of reality shows, Nickelodeon kids shows, and like a couple of other stuff like Star Trek and some other things. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll go back and watch that show. I mean, I'm a fan of Peyton List and everything, so I might as well support it. And if I don't like it, I'll tap out. After the second episode, I was hooked. Why? Because they pulled a Desperate Housewives. The show is actually a murder mystery. Who killed Maddie? And they get you hooked in every episode. Why? Because the ending of every episode paints one of the main characters as a potential killer. So technically everybody's a suspect, and they give you good reasons as to why they might want to kill Maddie. And it really keeps you hooked into the show. So yeah, the counseling stuff is still there. A little bit of teen drama here and there, but it's mostly just them investigating the people who are alive who knew her, and of course Maddie herself investigating. And just like with the first episode, how it ended, Simon is the only person who can see Maddie. And so the question is, why? And it's so intriguing, you can't stop watching. That's how I got it. It's 8 episodes, about like 40 something minutes. And so this was created by the duo. I don't know if they're married or brother and sister, but Megan and Nate Trinard. And then they created the show. But this is based off of their YA novel book that they wrote, who they also co-wrote it with Maria Wynn. And so like, I don't know if Maria is an actual producer on the show, but it has a bunch of producers. One of the producers from Pretty Little Liars. Now, this is an awesomeness show. I've covered a few of them in the past. Light as a Feather, Freakish. I'm about to cover Tagged. I don't know, in the recording of this video, I probably put Tag up first before I put this one up. And I think those were the only ones I've ever watched. There's a couple of more. There's one more I'm gonna watch that has Brett, whatever her last name is, the girl who plays Stargirl. I'm only watching it because she's in it. There's a bunch of other ones, and so like they get shipped out to other like networks to put out and stuff like that. And you probably heard of a good couple of them and stuff. And they normally only last for like 1 or 2 seasons, 3 at the most. And one of the reasons why is because they kind of go off a cliff whenever they get into a second season. Sometimes like the second seasons are pretty good, but it's just kind of like, the first one was better, and you kind of wavered away, and then you kind of get into this weird storytelling in the second series. And that's normally what kind of cost them, like, their series and stuff. And well, the huge main twist at the end of this season makes me wonder just how in the world are they gonna write around that in the second season. It might cost them because it was kind of like a weird out there kind of twist. I was just kind of like, I wasn't expecting that. I would have preferred something else. I just don't know how they're gonna write season two. Like it's gonna be weird. Let's just put it like that. It's gonna be weird, and that's the problem with awesomeness shows. They get kind of weird at times. If I didn't mention already, this is on Paramount Plus, and so, but yeah, a lot of their shows are like on Netflix, Hulu, all kind of other places. And awesomeness people, like the creators and stuff, they're actually pretty cool, man. They need to create more stuff, but they're teen driven and everything. All of their shows relate around teenagers. And, I am so glad I stuck with this show because the murder mystery aspect is very, very, very intriguing. But they're red herrings and everything. That's the sucky thing. But that's how murder mysteries are. You know what I'm saying? And, before I get into character profiles, let me give a shout out to the main actress herself, Peyton List. She is really moving on up and everything in the TV world. I'm not sure she does many movies, but in the TV world, she's moving on up from her Disney Channel days of being on Jessie. That's why I first saw her as like that little girl who grew up into a teenager and stuff. And then after that, she did Bunked. And one of the interesting things about her is when she takes on these new roles, she's learning like nuances, she's adding to her craft and becoming a better actress and stuff. And one interesting thing about her is that when she plays characters, she never plays a character in another show the exact same way. She's always changing it up. And that's a great way not to get typecast. First she played Emma, a very spoiled brat, rich girl in Jessie. Then when Emma went to the Bunk show, she started to be more like, not so bratty rich no more. Like she knew things, she wasn't as dumb. And then, I saw her in Light as a Feather, but she was only in 2 episodes. And of course, she finally got away from Disney, so she was throwing out some cuss words and stuff. That's how you graduate from Disney Channel. The next project you in, you always got to throw some cursing out. And so, but she was only in 2 episodes because she died very quickly. But then, of course, she played Tori, I think that was her name, in the Cobra Kai series, which was very different from anything else she's ever played. And then this is the next project I've seen her in. And here she kind of plays, not so much an emo, but kind of like an alternative, grunge type girl and stuff, who really doesn't have that much emotions or facial expression like Emma did. Emma was all about like, being loud and lots of facial expressions and all this other stuff. And here she's like toning it down. And not only that, but she's an executive producer or a producer, I'm not really sure which one, on this series. And that's how you do it in Hollywood. When you're on a TV show or a movie, you gotta be an executive producer or a producer. 1, you get paid more money, and 2, ain't nobody gonna screw your character up because you get to have a say. And that's the way you do it in Hollywood now. A lot of celebrities are doing that, and she's still in her early 20s, and she's learning the ropes as she goes, and that's just like amazing. You know what I'm saying? And and unlike other Disney Channel like former stars, she ain't gotten in trouble yet. You don't hear nothing about her having a DUI, doing drugs, going to rehab, a hit and run, getting pregnant, licking stuff, swinging on a giant wrecking ball. Like, you don't hear none of that stuff from her. And so I like how she keeps her nose clean and stuff. And I saw an interview with her one time, and she seems like a really good, well-rounded type person. And that's awesome and stuff. So I'm going to do something a little different. Normally, when I talk about a show, I talk about the main character first. But there is a crazy twist with her. So I'm going to get to her last. And before her, I'll do Simon. So I'll get through some other people first. I guess I'll start with, I guess I'll start with the ghost. Why not? So, like, there are a group of ghosts that she hangs around and everything. There's tons of them around the school. Many people have died at this school, and when you die at this school, you stay at this school, and you cannot leave. So these ghosts are in purgatory. Basically, they can't let go of the attachment of, like, Earth and everything, and whatever reason. Maybe it's a lover, maybe it's like guilt, maybe you just feel like, you don't deserve happiness, maybe, a family member, whatever. And this is the first series about ghosts that actually seems fun to be dead. I'm not even joking. Like, being dead on this show is a blast. First of all, you're not, well, the sucky thing is you can't walk through nothing. So that's the sucky thing. And nobody can see you, except for Simon can see Maddie, which I had some theories about that, and they still don't explain exactly why. But anyway, you can eat, you can drink, you won't get fat. You can still clickety clack with a person and stuff like that. You can drink and not get drunk. You can do substance and abuse it and you won't get high. And so, like, not only that, but you can touch stuff. You can open doors. Say you pick up a paper and you ball it up, crumple it up, and throw it in the trash can. It won't disappear from sight in the real world. It'll just make a duplicate in everything. And so everything resets itself every day. And you wear the same clothes that you died in and stuff, but you can change them up. And you basically just wander around the school doing whatever you want. And then it's interesting. They have like movie night. They go to prom every year. They go to graduation every year. They go to the football games every year because they're stuck in that purgatory and they've been there for decades. So every year they get to experience the same thing over and over and over. The people in band, they just stick to themselves and they play musical instruments 24/7. People who were theater majors, they stay in the theater and everything. And there's this one girl from the 70s who's a hippie, and she just loves wandering around school, checking out everybody's like Instagram and cell phone, and she knows everybody's passcode and stuff. And something else. Oh, they have like I forget what day it's called. It's like a outdoor day. And what do they do when they go outdoors? They wreck everything in school. They get out all their frustrations of being dead and they tear the whole school up. This is seriously the craziest show I've ever seen. And so let's see, the first ghost I'll probably talk about, probably the first person who met her. Charlie. So he is the first person to meet Maddie. He's trying to help her cope with like the dead world and everything. He's very nice and he's very friendly. He died from eating French fries that was cooked in peanut oil and he didn't have his EpiPen. His whole thing is that in the past, I think he's from the 90s, I think. In the past, he was going on a camping trip with the school and some boys were being mean to him because this one dude who's gay wanted to sleep inside his little tent. And so after making fun of him and that dude just hung out and they bonded. They fell for each other. Well, tragedy struck when his boyfriend outed him to his family. That pissed him off where he wrote him an extremely nasty letter talking about, I never liked you, called him a bunch of names and this and that. So he's had to live for many years and decades about, just like thinking he died before he could tell his boyfriend like the truth about that he really did care for him and everything. And that he didn't hate him and all this other stuff. So that's like guilt he has to live with. And he has to see that person every day because his boyfriend is now a teacher at that school. But they really don't show him. They only show him like one time. So Maddie has Simon, the dude who can see her, write a note, pretend like it's in one of the books in the library, and it's all like, oh, this was addressed to you and I found it. So he reads it, and he really doesn't like. You just see him read it, and you see Charlie looking at him, but you don't really hear anything from that teacher talking about like what it means to him. So it does lack that way. One thing I've always said about awesomeness shows is that sometimes the writing can get a bit clunky and stuff. Rhonda, she is the moodiest one of them all. I think she says she's been there for 60 years. That'll be around the 60s, I think. But she doesn't dress like it. She's dressed like she's in the 80s. Anyway, she's the grumpiest out of all of them. She's always in a mood, and in the first couple of episodes, she's always sucking on a lollipop. And then that's how I knew how they was able to eat food. 'Cause I thought, okay, maybe she died with that, but it's a different color in that same, just a couple of minutes later. And so basically, she died from the counselor, from strangulation and everything. So that was one of the most brutal murders ever at the school and stuff. And basically, she'll hang out with everybody, but she really doesn't want to. She's not really a team player, but they do get her to go to places like prom and this and that. Wally is from the 80s, and he played football because his mom wanted him to, but he didn't want to. And so his mom still goes to every football game after he died. The gym was named after him and everything, or the stadium. And he died by playing football by getting tackled too hard and suffering, I think hitting the back of his head or something like that. He's really nice. He's very bombastic and everything. He's the jock, and he falls for that. Maddie has a huge crush on her, invited her to prom, but she's too busy looking at her ex-boyfriend and trying to figure out her murder to the point where he feels just like gifted and everything. Dawn is the hippie girl. She's from the 70s, and basically she just wanders around school always happy and cheerful and stuff. She helps Maddie unlock her teacher's cell phone when she thinks that he might have killed her and stuff. When they're trying to trigger Maddie's memory, because she can't remember how she died, it's all a blur to her. And so whatchamacallem, what is it? It's all a blur to her. So they try to do like a seance type thing. It doesn't trigger no memories in her, but it triggers memories in that of Dawn. She remembers how she dies, and it's something she never wants to think about. Basically, she was in a part of the school, and she has these friends. She overheard them talking about her, about how they don't like her and all this other crap. It hurt her feelings, and when they were going to open the door, she spilt some water. Something happened with the light fixture. She tried to fix it and got electrocuted. And this is something that never really happens. Nobody never really thinks about how they died. And so when she's talking to Maddie, she apologized for not helping her trigger a memory. But Maddie tells her, you're a great person. Screw your friends from back in the day, and you're a terrific person. Then it happens. She ascended in everything. She passed over. She's no longer in purgatory. And when she passed, the light fixtures shine really bright and white light. This confuses a lot of the ghosts because they don't know how she passed. And so they think maybe it's because she thought about how she died and everything. And so when they go to Mr. Martin and everything, who's a teacher who's dead, the only adult who counsels them and everything, he doesn't want to hear nothing about it and say thinking about stuff like that, is too hurtful. So they're investigating how she went up into heaven and everything, because they said when Janet left and disappeared, Like, there was no flicker of light, so they don't understand what happened to Janet. And I'm all like, Janet? Who the heck is Janet? Because I've never seen Janet. That's part of the twist. Mr. Martin, he is a teacher was a teacher until he died. He died in the fire. He lied to everybody about how he died. He said that one of the students caused a fire. He got the rest of the students out and he died as a hero trying to save them. Turns out Janet was a student there and she died in the fire, but it was actually him who started the fire. So they don't understand why he lied. Then they found some type of shelter bunker type thing in the school, and then they found something really odd. They found their obituary, something that Mr. Martin has them to write. Then not only that, but they found his notes. He's basically been observing them like lab rats and everything. And then every item they had with them when they died, he puts in a box. They don't understand why and everything. So there's something mysterious going on with him and the Janet character. Because there's a flashback of him telling Janet no, and she does something really interesting. Okay, some people that are alive, Maddie and everything. Well, Maddie's mom, I should say. Maddie's mom, throughout the entire series, she is grieving and mourning her daughter, but she's not giving up hope. She believes her daughter is still alive, and she's doing everything she can to find her, even if it means going into the woods with Maddie's friends and looking for stuff. She gets on to the sheriff, who doesn't really want to do nothing, by trying to find Maddie's body. And so it turns out she's a former alcoholic. She used to be a terrible mom. She would get drunk and she would cuss and fuss Maddie out ever since Maddie was a little girl. And so her and Maddie just don't get along for that part, but Maddie does everything she can for her mom. When her mom was in a car accident, drunk, Maddie took the blame for it and everything. She called her teacher up, made sure her teacher got her mom safe at home, and Maddie pretended like she was the one in the car accident and had her license taken from her. And so even though she's tired of her mom, she still loves her. But something happened. At some point in time, they made it seem like the mom killed her. So they're doing an investigation stuff, and they needed her to confess. And so the mom finally confessed what happened that day because Maddie can't really remember. Turns out that her mom got super drunk, came to school, knocking stuff over with the car because she's drunk, talking about how she ain't going to rehab no more because she's so much better. And they're going to move. They're going to move up into the woods in a cabin. And Maddie's all like, we're poor. We ain't got no money like that. Well, her mom's going to use the money from her dead husband. Maddie is pissed. She's all like, that's my college fund money and everything. Like, how is she supposed to go to college without that money? And her mom's all like, we can make this happen. We can make this happen. Like, just like delirious. And she's all like, why do you want to move to Chicago and go to college there anyway? Because Maddie literally told her, I want to get away from you. Like, they have such a strained relationship. So people assume that, she might have been the killer, but she wasn't and stuff. And so she has that grief in her heart of not being a good mother and ruining her daughter's life. During one episode, when she starts to think her daughter might be alive and stuff, she starts drinking again, only to sober up towards the end of the season. Mr. Anderson, at least I think that's his name. He is Maddie's teacher, and he's the one who got her mom home safely. Simon likes to think everybody is the killer, and he assumed at one point in time that Mr. Anderson might. And because he kept finding pieces of Maddie's cell phone near him and stuff. And also there's some shady stuff he was doing. Well, it turns out that he was a nice guy to Maddie, but he did not kill her. His shady thing is that he was stealing money from the school. They were supposed to get new jackets for their sports and everything. And he just took the old jackets, made a new logo, and glued it onto the old jackets and kept all the money from school. Then It turns out that Claire found out what he was doing, and she wanted an A in like all her classes that he teaches and stuff. So she bribed him and gave him money because her family's like loaded and stuff. So a little money here, a there. Somebody found this out and made a video recording. So they assumed that he knew this and tried to kill her. But he's just greedy for money. And so somebody called and said that, no, somebody texted him and was all like, this is Maddie. Like, I'm gonna like put this video out if you don't give me all that money. So he assumed that it was Maddie and had the money for her, but it wasn't. It was actually for Nicole. Nicole is the best friend of Simon and Maddie. And so she's been investigating this entire season, wanting to know, like, who could have killed Maddie. But she gets blamed like everybody else. And because we see her in the woods, like, with a shovel digging up something and burying something in the rain. And it's like, dude, what did she do? And this is when the murder weapon was found in like Maddie's book bag. And so, she was doing some weird stuff on the internet. Turns out she's the one who recorded that message. And she extorted money from Mr. Anderson. Why? Because even though she's an artist, the schools in like, Chicago and other places would not accept her. And she wanted to be just with her two best friends and everything, right? So she wanted to get an apartment in Chicago next to them. But she didn't have the money because her family is poor. So she took the money from that of Mr. Anderson. Only problem is when she buried it, somebody spied on her. Somebody's been wandering around in a hoodie. And this is the person who killed Maddie. And so they stole the money and everything. And Xavier is the ex-boyfriend of Maddie. She likes them bad boys. And so like he has a father who's a sheriff, and his father's pretty shady looking. His father's always making fun of him, talking crap about him. So people assume he killed Maddie. Turns out he just had an affair. He cheated on her with Claire. And he wanted to get rid of this text that that he sent Claire. And that's when he ended up taking that of like Maddie's phone. So people assume he was the murderer, but he was like all cleared and stuff, right? Later on, he starts to help Simon in that Nicole and trying to solve the murder. And while he's investigating like this house that they found her book bag and the murder weapon and stuff, there's that person who keeps jumping out the window. That hooded figure took his car and ran him over to the point at the end where he went to the hospital. So when they first thought Claire could murder her and stuff, they had him go back to dating her. And so he gets scared of Claire because she freaks the crap out of him. But it turns out she's not the killer either. But then those two still end up dating again, which is so messed up. Claire is the former best friend of that Maddie. When they was younger growing up, they used to spend the night all the time. Well, both their parents are very abusive. Getting drunk and shouting and cussing and stuff like that. One night, Maddie's mom went off the deep end and started like acting a fool. That was the same night that Claire's parents were doing the same thing. So she ran over to Maddie's place, asking to spend the night, but Maddie would not let her in the house. So they stopped being friends, and to get revenge, she stole Maddie's boyfriend. And like I said before, she was like, bribing that teacher to get an A by giving him money. Other than that, she's in the clear. And she really does like Xavier and stuff. And even to the point of like stepping up to his father and defending him. And I can't believe who she's played by. She's played by Rainbow. I literally talked about a show, I think earlier this year, the Bureau of Magical Things, where she was in the show playing a fairy. So that's an Australian show, and she faked an American accent, which she does very well. Simon is the best friend of that of Nicole and Maddie. He reminds me of Tweak from South Park, but more calmer and Ducky. Basically, he is madly in love with Maddie. He's a hair trigger away from going and having a nervous breakdown. And he is the only person who can see Maddie, but he can't see her all the time. He can only see her in a room where a person died. So the classroom, the cafeteria, the boiler room, the bus stop, as there at the school, those places and stuff. He is very adamant about finding out who her murderer is, to the point where he can't do nothing else. That's all he has on his mind. And he confronts every person he blames, which is basically the entire main cast. And every time he confronts people, he never brings like a weapon or nothing like that. Like, they're gonna kick his butt, like, if they really wanted to. And he just confronts people in like in closed rooms, like he's not scared. Like, he desperately wants to find out who like murdered her and stuff. He ends up being jealous of Xavier because he's dating Maddie. He doesn't understand why Maddie likes the bad boy and not him. He's in the friend zone. You never want to be in the friend zone. It never works out, people. And so he is the one also helping her, when she discovers a hidden room with tons of money. It turns out to be that teacher I told you about. He steals the teacher's cell phone, gets caught, what is it? Cracking, that one Dawn girl has the password. So he's really helping her out because she can't do stuff. He finds out that the whole cell phone, Maddie's cell phone and everything, was actually broken by Claire. Claire didn't want Maddie to see that text. And so she just swapped phones and everything. And the one thing when watching all these 8 episodes, I'm just kind of like, why in the world is he the only person who can see her? And he's the only person who's not a suspect. And I'm just like, maybe, just maybe he's tricking everybody. Maybe he killed her. Maybe that's why he can see her and everything. But it turns out, no, he's completely innocent. But he's really ruining his life. He got accepted. Well, he's trying to get accepted into that school in Chicago, but he doesn't want to go. He only wanted to go there because of Maddie. And if she's not there to go with him, he don't want to go. And so, he's just ruining his entire life, because at some point he's going to have to graduate, and he can't keep going back to that school unless he works there. And so the craziest thing happens. The group get attacked, like I told you, by that person in the hood. And so Nicole records who it is, and she gets a glimpse of the rearview mirror, and she sends him the video. He confronts Maddie about this. And when he shows her, it is the craziest twist I've ever seen. So let's get into Maddie. Why not? Because she's the last person. Except for one other person, but I can't really talk about that person. So, like I've been saying, Maddie's dead. Or is she? So here's the thing. Maddie is just your typical girl. She's a little grunge, this and that. She got her best friends, and she's dead trying to cope with life. So after all the investigations and everything, and she's talking to Simon when she wrote her obituary, she literally confesses to Simon that maybe this is why we can see each other, because I'm in love with you too. And you, my love for you is beyond that of friendship and all this other stuff. And So she finally got to see him for who he is and how much he loves her, even though she started dating other people. Now, like I said before, it's never explained why he can see her. Maybe it's the strong love bond that they have for each other, but then you gotta think about Wally. His mom loves him, he loves his mom, but yet they can't see each other. So I don't know. I think it's another reason, but they just haven't went into that second season. Oh, by the way, it got renewed for a second season, and I already said that. And so when she's confessing everything, she's all like, I'm a great friend to you, and you're a great friend to me. And he's all like, I wish that was true. I'm like, oh no, he did it, but oh no, he didn't. Who killed Maddie? Well, he shows her the video of the person in the hood who's been like following people and attacking people. It's Maddie. What the freak nuts? Like, so I'm just kind of like, I had in the back of my mind, maybe she's not really dead and maybe she's in purgatory, but maybe she's like unconscious or something like that, or in a coma. But no, she's walking around and doing some shady stuff. Why? Because it's not even her. They show, remember that girl Janet I told you about? And when Janet disappeared, there was no white light. There's a reason. When she was talking to Mr. Martin and everything, Maddie overheard two people arguing. Now, this is what's weird and bizarre. And this is where they're going to write themselves into a corner because they have to explain how Maddie was able to hear them. When Maddie and her mom had a huge argument, she took her mom down into like the boiler room. Her and her mom got into a huge argument. She told her mom, take my necklace and sell it for $40 or whatever and leave her alone. And so she was just there in the boiler room, upset and like really sad and everything, right? Then she heard two people arguing. She opened up the shelter door, and there she saw Mr. Martin and Janet. But we only see Janet as kind of like a shadow. The rest of her is like in a shadowy kind of looking thing. Janet runs towards Maddie and leaps into her body. This causes Maddie's spirit to fall out her body, and all we see is like Maddie falling backwards. We don't know if it's the ghost, but it's mostly the ghost spirit falling backwards. But here's the question. Who got murdered? Why was there blood in the boiler room? And why was a crowbar with blood on there used as the murder weapon? If another student got murdered, then why haven't they appeared at the school? Also, maybe Janet took the crowbar, cut herself, or cut Maddie's body and put the blood in it, but it's a blood splatter. So you're going to have to make it splat. And you can't just do that by cutting yourself and smearing it. So somebody got it down there in the boiler room and everything. And this is why Maddie can't leave every time to school and she goes back into the boiler room. And so Maddie, literally, her memory finally came back to her and everything because somebody locked the three main ghosts of the show in that little shelter room. When they found out what Mr. Martin did, somebody locked them into the room, but we don't know who it is. And so they're all like, oh, it'll just reset itself and we can open the door. But no, it won't. So that means a ghost had to have done it. And or maybe like a human or whatever. But it had to be a ghost because they can open up any door. So they bang on the door. They say you can't trust Mr. Martin. And so Maddie's down there and she turns around and there go Mr. Martin staring her down. Then we see Janet inside Marty's body. She stole the money, she went to a bus station, and she got the heck out of Dodge. So, yeah, Maddie is actually alive. It's just her body her spirit got misplaced and everything. This was the nuttiest, craziest twist I ever saw. But here we go when it comes to the second season that has not even been made yet. How in the heck are they going to write themselves out of this corner? It was too much of a twist. I would have preferred it if one of the living characters murdered Maddie. But of course, if they would have done that, then there would be no second season, because what's the point? But they could have figured something out. But, oh, Guidance. Guidance is the other awesomeness show that I saw. Anyway, but now they gotta explain, where did Janet go inside of that of Maddie's body? Will she come back to town? Because there are missing flyers all over town and she can't be seen. So she must gonna have to change her appearance. Also, when I forgot to mention, when Simon showed Maddie the video, he's all like, I don't know how you're here as a ghost, but in the real world and everything, but maybe I'm going crazy. And he leaves Maddie and everything, while Maddie was like calling out for him and stuff. He literally wants nothing to do with her because he thinks he's going nuts in the head. So not only that, but whose blood was it down there in the boiler room? Because the cops, they found Maddie's book bag, they found the crowbar, and they found the blood on the crowbar, and somebody had to have taken a DNA test from the crowbar and the blood on the wall. Why haven't they said it was Maddie's body? So the cops must have knew Maddie was never dead and just missing, and that blood belongs to somebody else. But the question is, who? So this is something they gotta write themselves out of a corner, because there are too many roadblocks and everything. And it's just kind of weird that, like, that was the twist all along. I thought, okay, maybe Maddie killed herself by mistake, slipped and fell. But then where the body went, that's the thing. They could never find the body. So, but yeah, this is a really cool show. Like, it really, really gets you at the end of every episode, and you really think all these people did it to Maddie, but it was just a ghost that did it to her. But why is this ghost able to take somebody else's body? How is Maddie able to see them and everything and hear them? What is the deal with Mr. Martin and everything? Because remember, he's been spying on all the ghosts and taking down specific notes about them. So I'm thinking, did Maddie steal their bodies too? Like, after they died, like, did she inhabit their body? To where he took so much notes that she could pretend to be them, because they have some kind of weird partnership going on. But he did try to stop her when she went in Maddie's body. So this is really interesting for season 2. And this is why I fear, because they normally write themselves off a cliff when it gets to the second seasons in these awesomeness shows. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.